Dear you, there are moments in life that don't arrive loudly. They don't kick the door in or announce themselves with drama. They slip in quietly, like a draft through a cracked window you didn't know was open. That's how it started. Not with proof, not with certainty, just a feeling that kept tapping me on the shoulder no matter how many times I asked it to go away. He was still there, still coming home, still asking about the kids, still sitting across from me at the table, reaching for his coffee like nothing had shifted. But something had shifted. I noticed it in the pauses, in the way his attention wandered when I spoke, in how certain conversations felt, rerouted, like they had somewhere else to be. There were nights he was physically present but emotionally unavailable, as if part of him had already clocked out and gone somewhere I wasn't invited. And I told myself all the things women tell themselves when they love deeply and hope stubbornly. He's tired. It's just stress. Marriage has seasons, but intuition doesn't nag, it waits. And mine waited patiently while I rearranged my reality to make room for his distance. I began listening more carefully, watching more closely, not because I wanted to catch him, but because I needed to understand what I was feeling. The truth is, I didn't want to be right, because being right would mean something was already broken, and broken things ask you to make decisions you're not ready to make. So I stayed in the space between knowing and denial, hoping love would choose me back if I gave it enough grace. The thing about dishonesty is that it doesn't always show up as a lie. Sometimes it shows up as omission, as selective honesty, as answers that sound right but feel wrong. When I finally asked the questions I had been avoiding, he didn't explode. He didn't confess dramatically. He stayed calm, too calm. His answers were polished, careful, almost rehearsed. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't asking to understand anymore. I was asking to feel safe. There were details he brushed past, moments he minimized, connections he described as nothing, even though they carried weight in his voice. And suddenly I understood something that changed everything. I wasn't competing with another woman for his body. I was competing for his emotional honesty. There's a particular loneliness that comes from being married and realizing your partner is confiding in someone else in ways they no longer confide in you. It's not jealousy, it's grief. Grief for the intimacy you thought was sacred. Grief for the conversations that used to belong to your marriage. I forgave him, at least I said I did, because I wanted peace, because I wanted my children to grow up in a whole home. Because forgiveness felt like the holy thing to do. But forgiveness doesn't automatically restore trust. And trust, once fractured, doesn't come back quietly. It comes back, or doesn't, through consistency, transparency, and truth. And truth was now fragile. What changed me most wasn't what he did. It was who I was becoming while trying to survive it. I became alert instead of relaxed. I became quiet instead of expressive. I became someone who double-checked tones, timestamps, explanations. I didn't like that version of myself. I noticed how my patience thinned, how my laughter faded faster, how my spirit felt smaller. And then there were the children, little eyes watching, little hearts absorbing more than I realized. I stayed longer than I should have, not because I didn't know better, but because I wanted to protect them from pain. But one night, after everyone was asleep, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. She looked like she was carrying something heavy that wasn't hers to carry. And in that quiet moment, something settled in me. Love should not require you to abandon yourself. Marriage should not make you distrust your own intuition. And honesty, real honesty, is the bare minimum. I prayed differently after that, not for my marriage to survive, but for the courage to choose truth, even if it changed everything. And eventually, It did. Dishonesty doesn't just break trust, it reshapes the entire relationship. Even when you forgive, even when you stay, even when you try to rebuild. Because once you realize someone is capable of withholding the truth, you begin to question everything that came before it. What was real? What was convenience? What was love? And what was avoidance? I learned that emotional betrayal cuts deeply because it steals intimacy quietly. It convinces you to doubt yourself while convincing the other person they haven't done anything that bad. But love doesn't survive half-truths, and honesty is not optional when someone's heart is involved. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I started loving myself enough to require truth. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this: pay attention to who you become when honesty disappears. That version of you is trying to tell you something sacred. Dear you, if you're listening, trust that voice.